1. We should be live. And hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to the Power On Show on Talk Power BI with Charles and Avi. Hanging out. We do this once every month. And today we got a special topic. Your biggest fears. We're going to be talking about you and us. We have the same fears, right? I mean, even though we're kind of here. But yes, so say hello. If you're joining us on YouTube, let us know where you are joining us from. And yeah, this is Avi from Seattle. Charles.
Charles from Holland, Michigan.
There we go. All right, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Ravi online and we have Ashish. So folks, so today we did, Charles and I were brainstorming kind of the ones that surfaced to the top. And I would say, I'm just going to write a few notes down here. So one is, of course, the consistent income thing. And Charles, we were talking about the kind of the fear of putting yourself out there, fear of selling. Is that the same, you think, or is that different?
The fear of putting yourself out there, and which one? The income?
So consistent income is certainly a different one, but fear of selling versus putting yourself out there. Do you see them as the same fear?
Or that's a good question. It's telling your story, right? Putting yourself out there, selling, is kind of telling your story.
Let's keep them separate for now.
So yeah. So I think they are related, but I think that's a deeper discussion.
Yeah. So, folks, definitely add to the list if you have something that you would like us to discuss. So, consistent income, fear of selling. For a second, I read it as fear of spelling. I'm like, wow, that would be crazy.
I have that fear too.
Yeah.
Autocorrect helps.
Oh, trust me. Yeah, I've had English teachers write back to me saying, Avi, you fix your grammar. All right, it's not me and my son. It's my son and I. I remember that one. Thank you, by the way. that was a good lesson. So consistent income, fear of selling, fear of putting yourself out there. Medical coverage, I don't know, that may be US specific. We are the ones that are most kind of screwed up in that regard. That's one. And I have some more. The JOB one.
And Ian put one in here today too in the Slack channel. He said, putting so much work into your business and fear of not getting an outcome, getting to your goals.
Gosh, yeah. I'm gonna work so hard.
Yeah.
And then, fail or no results. Yeah. Great, boy. This is gonna be an action-packed hour. So let's say a few more hellos. We got Jean Petro, hello from Italy. Mark from Malaysia. Ashish is here from Pune. Lisa is here from Michigan. Hey, Charles neighborhood. Jordan says hi from Houston, Texas. Don Mud TV is here. Steven says hi from Malawi. Hello, Steven. Eduardo says hello from Madrid, Spain. Alice is here from Indiana. Ansgar is here. Hello, my friend. Good to see you again from Nuremberg. Christian is here from Romania. And Ansgar is saying role of social media for running businesses, modern entrepreneurs. So maybe there are some kind of fears on social media. So we got kind of a long list here. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with consistent income, and hold on, let me. So we got a few topics here, folks.
I'll try to keep it. You said somebody was from Indiana, huh? Let me look. Oh, Alice. All right, a Hoosier. I worked in Kokomo, Indiana, so that's kind of cool.
All right, so let's tackle the first one, consistent income. So I'll take that on, Charles, if that's okay with you, and then I'll hear your thoughts. So we have talked about this before, so I'm gonna be quick, somewhat. Which is, I think it was a Power On show. Yeah, it was Charles and I talking about it, and we were talking about that how sometimes we feel like a job is safe versus consulting is not. But I see that as opposite. Because if your job is like putting all of your eggs in the same basket, it's like putting all of your money in the Enron stock, and then it blows up, right? Of course, for a job, man, either the company is going through some troubled times and something happened. That's what happened to me. Or who knows? I mean, they don't have to be going through. They do layoffs in good times now, right? I mean, corporate America, at least. I don't know how the rest of the world works, but layoffs can come anytime, anywhere, and it doesn't matter where you are. And my boss used to say that, Avi, if you get laid off, don't take it personally. It's not personal. It's like an axe falling, and if you're on this side of the axe, you're safe. If you're on that side of the axe, you're gone. Right? It's not personal. And I saw people in tears who were around for Microsoft for 20 years, and now they were laid off, and they didn't know what to do. So you think that's low risk, but that's extremely risky because it's going to catch you off guard. Man, I was gutted when I was laid off. It was the most painful thing I'd experienced in my life. You don't just lose your job, you lose your bloody identity because we get
Yeah.
so tied in with that, right? That again, that's like putting all of your money in the Enron stock. And hey, while the going is good, going is fine, right? But right, so worse is if you look at consultant, there are a few things going on. For one, we diversify our stock investments, right? We are never invested in just one stock. So that's a plus right away, right? And then if you think about it, I mean, the fact that we don't get a consistent income, that makes us much smarter. That means, we usually, kind of, and there are a lot of different things that usually the folks who are doing it the right way do. I mean, you can think about multiple streams of income. Of course, your clients are diversified right away, but then when you get at some level, you're going to start thinking about diversified streams of income and so forth. And generally you buffer for that. So if something crazy happens like this pandemic, guess what? The consultants who had a variable income, which you're seeing as a risk, would be far better prepared than
Yeah.
an employee. All right, cool. So, just Charles, what do you think? Did I kill it? I mean, are we done?
Well,
Can we move on?
I'm frantically writing down because there was so much packed into
Oh,
that, and
trust
I
me,
have so
yeah,
many like corollaries, right? I mean, just your
yeah,
comment on identity, that's so huge for me because I, before that's what people do. They walk around. It's like, what do you do? And you say, well, I'm an engineer at blah blah blah. But I didn't want to be like put in a box with a name. I wanted to
yeah,
be I wanted to have the freedom to reinvent my identity and try different things. And like you said, have a variable stream and have the freedom to create it on the fly. Like today, or like for example, the pandemic came along, and I was like, I want to reinvent myself as the guy who brought the community together to provide masks and face shields. And I
yeah,
wanted to earn people's trust and do impact to the world. Right. That's what my goal was. And I went forward, and
yeah,
nowhere was, if anybody would have asked me before, do you 3D print PPE? I would have like, no. But then I just made it. I created it out of thin air and poof, right?
oh God,
And the
yeah,
freedom to do that
yeah,
is so valuable. And I think for me, it was to define my life not as income, but
mm-hmm,
to define my life as impact and how I help people, right? When you start your own job, that was more important than the income, is the ability to choose my own path, my own journeys,
yeah,
multiple paths.
yeah,
And so that overcame my fear of the income. But I just wanted to add a point too for,
mm-hmm,
here's a story. My mom, she opened multiple restaurants when we were growing up, right? And the restaurant business is hard because you can't take vacations. You got to cook every day. You got to be open every day. And she put in, tens of thousands of dollars for the build out, the kitchen, the refrigerator and stuff. And so, when I told her wanted to start my business, she all the pain from that starting that business came. She's like, "Oh, so much work, Charles, and you got kids to raise, and what are you doing? Why are you doing it right now? And it's
yeah,
so expensive." And I remember the conversation I had with her is
yeah,
things have changed. Like now with the digital revolution and the amount for to start up like a Power BI consulting business,
yeah.
like the investment is so low. I mean, you can
Yeah.
use the
Actually,
laptop.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think the whole consistent income is moot, at least the
yeah,
way we recommend. So, hey, I left my job kind of cold turkey. And of course,
yeah,
man, I don't recommend that to anybody.
Yeah.
Build it on the side. That's what almost everybody who's in a program has done, and that's a great way to go. And build it on the side, and as you see it grow. So you're right. I mean, that's a huge change. The
Yeah.
level of investment is so low.
And I
Yeah.
think your point there, build it on the side,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can test it. And then what I did, I remember now thinking back, it's like people are always scared of, will this work? What if I do,
Yeah.
if I start this and it doesn't work? And what I did, I think
Yeah.
after watching your shows, I just went internally within my business
Yeah.
and I sold it, Power BI to different departments.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then
That was
I,
great training. Yeah.
yeah, it was like you had like internal clients and the trust was already
Exactly.
there, right? So,
Exactly.
but then I saw the potential. I saw the pattern. I think that's what a lot of people who get into Power BI and start testing
Yeah.
it was like, oh, I'm limited now within this company. I
Yeah.
want to take this to the world. And then
Oh,
income's not an issue because you see it. You see that this could impact a lot of people and provide value.
yeah.
Oh, and that feeds another fear is like you have that fear of disappointing your customers. Like, what if I don't
Oh,
provide value?
ouch.
Yeah.
Oh
And
man, we're
then,
really digging in there. Yeah, don't go
oh,
too deep on that one because I want
okay,
to take
okay.
it on. Yeah.
I'll leave that one for later. But man,
Yeah.
Power BI, after my first few internal clients, I was like, wow, the
Yeah.
clients are really, really happy. And then I
Yeah.
got my first external client, and she came back like 4 times, for more work, for more work, for more
Yeah.
work, and put a good review up on, Google. And I was like, this is different because, I'm not disappointing. I'm providing so much value. They're coming back and selling me to other people. So,
Yeah.
no, I'll stop talking. I'm not. This
Wow.
is a big one, a good
Yeah,
one.
man. I
So
mean, I feel like the same thing here. I mean, I usually don't multitask well, but I felt like taking notes as you were talking because there's a
yeah,
lot packed in there, guys. So, so consistent income, we've talked about that enough. I guess we had a few other things, but let me let me switch to that one. I think that's a great segue, and oddly, it didn't make the list initially, but
yeah,
so I what I wrote it as disappoint your customer, and I think the basic question is that am I good enough? The good enoughness, and oh man, do we all
yeah,
struggle with that?
yeah,
And folks,
yeah,
yeah, we're not immune. Like we struggle with this. This happens to me daily. Yeah, right. So and of course, people look at me, and when I talk about this, like, no, Avi, come on, man. I mean, you wrote a book on this. I mean, look at your YouTube channel. It's like, no, we're all humans, I mean, remember that. So
yeah.
that's definitely there. So Charles, I know you spoke a little bit about that, but yeah, well, tell me. Let's dive in there. Tell me a bit more. What would your advice be to somebody who is at the edge and saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm not good enough yet. I gotta learn a lot more. Oh gosh, there's so much to learn in Power BI. There's so much that I don't know, right? I mean, they look at the universe of the knowledge that they don't have,
Yeah.
and it just kind of pops their bubble,
Yeah.
right? They're like, don't know. Clearly, I'm not an expert. What would you say to them?
That's and I fell into that trap too. Oh, internet is unstable. Is it? Am I
Darn.
still good?
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, loud
Okay.
and clear.
So I've got kids streaming upstairs, so every once in a while I might get a little blippy. I try to tell them to get off the streaming.
Yeah,
It's life during these times. So what would I tell somebody? The fear of not knowing technical. It's you get to a certain point, and you learn and you binge watch. And I think what changed it for me, Avi, was you have a video and you talk about the pyramid,
yeah.
and
Oh God,
and
yeah,
that really my mindset shifted when we showed me that pyramid because I realized there's people at the top, there's people all the way up and down the pyramid, and I realized I could be in the middle and I could help people at the bottom. There's and bring them up to my level,
yeah.
and just doing that impact, helping somebody, was my goal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it didn't have to be the whole world. There's some people that are more advanced than me, but realizing where
Exactly.
I sit in that pyramid and just making an impact, I made that my goal is can I make a difference in one person's life? And I think
Oh,
you've explained that on several of your videos too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So guys,
And
I mean,
and once you
yeah,
do that,
yeah.
yeah,
I'll just say that it's so awesome to kind of hear the things that I strongly believe in kind of reflected back. because it kind of reinforces it for me. And so Charles, thanks for that. Thanks for that. So folks, yeah, I'll just kind of recap, or
Yeah.
so the pyramid theory goes that we're often so fixated with the top of the pyramid, right? We're just kind of looking up and looking at the folks on the top, and it's a never-ending thing, right? So of course, generally in Power BI community, there's pretty much one set of folks whom we all look up to, which is the SQL BI guys, right? I mean, they're phenomenal. Marco Russo, Alberto Ferrari. You look at them go, and you feel so puny. I remember meeting with them, and I said, guys, help me out. So people, when they talk to me, they're like, oh, Avi, you're awesome. But then I look at you guys and, I feel horrible, right? So, and the funny thing is that, guess what? How do you think those guys feel? Do you think they feel like at the top of the pyramid? I can guarantee you 100% that they don't. Because frankly, once you get at that level, you start comparing with somebody else. And there's always somebody else there. Maybe not in the Power BI community, maybe in the BI community. And if you get to the top of the BI community, I don't know, maybe you're going to start looking at the business community. And then who knows, right? It never ever stops.
Yeah.
So either you can stay fixated there, and again, that's the challenge, right? I mean, your fears lock us in. They think the fear inside us thinks that it's protecting us, but it's not. Right? So again, it's a useful emotion, can be useful in some spots, right? I mean, if you're think about the horror movie, right? Scenario where there's a dark alley or something, and there's somebody with a knife. Yeah, sure, fear is good, right? But mostly, it's a relic of our ancient past, and it keeps stopping us from this big dream. So if you stay fixated at the top of the pyramid, you're gonna stay stuck because you're gonna talk yourself out of it. But again, as Charles said, you just focus on the people who are just a few steps below you on the pyramid. Those are the ones you serve. And again, don't think about 10, 100,000, how many followers, how many consultants, how many clients can I get. Find one person you can help and go help them. That'll clear the logjam for you. And again, I mean, as Charles talks about, I mean, he had one customer and then another and then another, and then pretty soon you feel okay, right? I mean, you're like, yeah, okay, cool, I can do this. Awesome. Um, Great. So let's see. Oh, what happened? Sorry, I closed the chat window. I was trying to check in on the chat. No, that's not good. All right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Checking my chat too. I have it running on another. It's funny. So while we were waiting, I was texting my son upstairs, like, "Hey guys, stop streaming."
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. Do something else. I'm gonna make sure. So we talked about disappointing custom. Am I good enough? Ooh, let's take on fear of selling. And I don't know. Maybe this would go to fear of putting yourself out there as well. Maybe. And I think somebody talked about social media. All right. So folks, anybody who's in our program, or actually even in Talk Bar, yeah, you probably heard me say this again and again. The best way to sell is not to sell. Because man, think about it. Think about how many sales messages, ads, right, are we bombarded with every single day? And at least, when it was kind of the old ways, TV, you were watching something and then an ad popped in. But now it's incessant, right? I mean, it's everywhere. And of course, in pretty much everything we use is being monetized or has been monetized. Facebook, of course, Google, data, all of that stuff. And of course, these guys are getting so smart. Now, of course, everybody's in a lockdown, but they can already, detect kind of the address of your phone, like the machine address, and know that, oh, you were looking for these shoes, and then as you're walking on the street, as you're walking by that digital billboard, they will show you the shoes you're looking at. And let's not get into this, is it creepy or not, but the fact is that again, we're bombarded by sales messages. So what so the key is that when others zig, you gotta zag, right? So when others are being kind of salesy, the best way to sell becomes not to sell, not to act like the salesman. So Charles, mate, what do you think
Yeah.
about that, and how have you adopted that, or do you use that philosophy approach in your business?
I do. I do. You know, it's you watch the patterns and you're right. It's just everybody wants your attention. They want your engagement. They want you to, and it's bombarding. And I spend my day unsubscribing to newsletters now. It's like,
Yeah,
wow, there's just so much people trying to, grab my attention. So I've taken, and then, the other side, here's one of the fears is, there's so many people that consume your time. And I've taken the philosophy as my time is super valuable. And how do you protect your time? And people just wanting your attention, wanting, a coffee, etc. And you're like, man, if I take this time and allocate it here, how can I help somebody else? And they're tire kickers, right? They just want to talk to you and like, but I should be using this time for something else. So I kind of learned this from John Nemo too. You kind of introduced me to John Nemo, but
yeah,
you put you put videos and you put yourself out there, and it's your true authentic self. And he kind of talks about this too: is people will find your YouTube video, they'll subscribe, they'll watch, and they'll get to know you. And once the trust is established, then they'll come to you and say, "Hey, I've got a job, and I've watched your videos, and we resonate on multiple values."
yeah,
And so you know, YouTube is an interesting medium because you just post them. It's what they call evergreen content, I think, and you post it out there, and people get to know you that way. And then when they're ready, they come to you instead of the interruption. And I've been watching this trend is everybody's doing the interrupting thing, and
yeah,
that doesn't work anymore. So I'm trying the approach of put myself out there and the people. And I know John Nemo talks about this too. Is
yeah,
you put yourself out there, and then when somebody decides I already trust you and I've gone past some of the hurdles and they come to you, it's more like the funnel is already here. You're already getting people lower in the sales funnel. So
yeah,
that's been my philosophy, and it's worked. It's crazy. It's hard to measure, right? Because you're like, well, I'm doing all these videos, but what's my ROI? Everybody always asks that. Are you actually getting leads? And I tell
yeah,
people, it's like, yeah, I am getting leads. It's very difficult to measure and explain, but
yeah.
it's how people watch your videos, develop the trust, and then come to you later. So I don't
Yeah, that's a
know.
good point.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So of course, so folks, Charles, talked about kind of his approach, and Insider program. I talk about a slightly kind of different path, but it definitely overlaps with what Charles is saying. And then the core idea is definitely there. That best way to sell is not to sell. Don't go out there and be a salesman. Frankly, it's not kind of fun doing it. Maybe for some people, I know not for me. I know that I dreaded that for a long time. Still dread it, right? I don't want to be that salesman. And again, the right. So so when we started working with the kind of the consultant group and kind of training and coaching others to become consultants, initially I was big on social media because I was like, hey, just look at me, right? I mean, look what I did on YouTube. You can do it too. And and then we tried that and it didn't quite work.
mm,
And I thought, you know what? Yeah, it took me 2 years to get this to a point, which is the holy grail for consultants, right? I mean, that you're getting a steady stream of customers. And I
yeah,
said, man, 2 years is way too long. There has to be a shortcut. So the question I asked myself was that how many YouTube videos or whatever platform you go with, how many blogs, how many tweets, how many posts, how many LinkedIn articles is it going to take for you to build a steady stream of customers? And the answer is way too many. Man, you talk to anybody who's built that. Man, Matt Allington talks about that. It's like, Avi, it takes a lot of content. And you go to a site and it is a lot of content he's built over years. And that's okay, that's a path. But then I said, if that answer there is way too many, right? How many videos, articles this day? It takes way too many. What about a different path? So what if you just needed one story? And of course, Charles knows all about it. I
yeah,
talk about it all the time, and I say, guys, just have one story, one powerful story, which we call the Billstone story,
yeah,
and it's a scenario targeted towards your focus and niche. Talks about their pain points and how you can help them. It doesn't give them too much, right? It doesn't give them the whole shebang like, oh, look at this, all of these things I can do for you. No, that's silly, guys. That's like, you need a trailer for a movie. You don't want to give them the movie. Let them pay for it, right? So that's that. So again, it's around a focus in a niche. You have a client in head, and you're talking to that one person. You know what keeps them up at night. You know what their pain points are, and you start talking about them there, and that's the connection there. And then you say, "Oh, I can help you. Oh, by the way, using this tool, Power BI, and Power BI is kind of an afterthought. I never think we should lead with the tool.
Yeah.
Let's focus on solving business problems. So a couple of different approaches around it, and I'm sure kind of Charles blends that one too. But
Well,
yeah,
just a
don't
couple
feel
things
like
to add too.
yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
I think what you've taught us, in your programs and stuff, tell great stories, have a story, because the other thing about social media is everybody makes these claims. It's like, I'm number one, I'm blah, blah, blah. But a story demonstrates,
Oh God,
walks a
yeah,
person through, here's a
yeah,
problem, I solved it, here's the process I took, here's the results. And it demonstrates it, especially on video too. You can see the person, you have them walk through that story. So I think
yeah,
telling a story is so powerful. And if I think part of sales is really demonstrating that you have that proficiency to problem solve and understand the customers. Like you said, put the problem, understand the problem, have the results in the story. And another interesting fear I wanted to bring that you kind of recognized is niching down. I know a lot of people are scared of niching down.
yeah, yeah,
So, what I've discovered is with when you start your own company, you can niche down, try a thing, try it out, and you find that nobody's interested in that niche. So like back out, try another one, and you can do this testing. And I think a lot of people are scared of it's like, well, I got to go over the whole market because I don't know where I'm going to niche yet. But I've discovered like you
yeah,
can niche down, and then when you find that one, you'll notice people start coming, right? And then you're like,
yeah.
oh, this is where I want to be, and then you start moving. So don't be scared of niching because you can always change. But
Yeah,
it's so rewarding when you find the one that you love and everybody
yeah,
else loves too, and you're like, here's where I'm going. Let's go.
yeah. That's right, man. There's so much there. So that one, I don't know. Maybe we'll do a whole episode in that one. That
Yeah.
one is really nice. Actually, another idea that I had for an episode, folks, was earlier Charles was talking about how his kind of personal and professional life have kind of blended. And I went through the same thing. And he talked about the thing that he did with 3DC19, where he was printing out masks and all that stuff. And this was a massive, almost global collaboration. So there's something here where the mixing of things there, and what I say is you are in one thing as you are in another. What you're going to find is that if you do something really bold and courageous in a personal setting, guess what? You're going to find that it's going to carry over to professional setting and vice versa, right? So, and of course, Charles has kind of done both, right? He did something big and bold professionally. He kind of left his job and did this new business. And I think that allowed him to do the 3D C19 thing and, help with the mask and do something big and bold. So yeah, this transition, we'll talk about that later. Some of the episode niching down, maybe a whole episode in itself. So I think we talked about kind of selling. So let's take some of the questions. So folks, don't post again and again. Obviously, it doesn't help anybody. You might get a timeout, you know. So some folks were asking about how much are they worth? How do I know that I'm being paid right? I'm gonna put that on the back burner here, and we'll see if we can get it. Because I don't think that's kind of a fear, but maybe go to the related fear, which is that I'm gonna work so hard and fail and not get any results. What do you think, Charles?
Oh, that's a deep one. That's one
Yeah,
Ian on our program put together. And I think that touches on multiple fears. It's the fear of disappointing, your family,
yeah,
your
yeah.
clients. You work
Oh
so
God, that's
hard.
so true. Because
Yeah,
yeah, folks. I mean, it's not about just you. I mean, we have people around us, and yeah.
yeah.
So I'll
It's
admit that was one of my biggest fears. My biggest fear was so. Of course, my story is that I was found Power BI, got so inspired, did amazing things inside Microsoft, had the best professional years in my career, like a promotion, bonus, everything was working. I was like popular, right? I mean, I was like really going really
yeah.
hot. And then I walk into my manager's office and I quit my job, saying that, well, I want to make a bigger impact. So I did that. And of course, at that time, I felt very elated, very free. But then, of course, the struggle started, and boy, did I struggle. Of course, some of you have heard my story of where I wanted to go dig ditches. I wouldn't say that again, but yeah, man, it was dark, dark times. Burned through my savings. My checks started bouncing for the first time ever in my life. I never experienced that before, where I had to check my bank account before I paid for my stuff at the grocery store. So that was bad, and of course, this fear playing in my head was that I would have to go back to my job with my tail tucked between my legs, right? I would have to crawl to my boss again and
Yeah.
beg for my job back. Like, yeah, I made a mistake. Oh God! So did you? Was I? Am I the only one? Like Charles, did you go through a version of that?
Oh my goodness. I remember I joined a group that was entrepreneurs, and we met every week, and I remember, I was going through this transition, leaving the job, and I remember walking into a meeting one day, and they're like, "Well, what's it like?" Because I was one of the only few that was taking that step. Most were still in their corporate jobs and doing this on the side. And I remember telling the crowd, I was like, it's kind of like every day waking up and picking your worst fear and having to address that fear every single day. And that's how it was for probably the first, the final weeks before I left the corporate job. And I
Yeah,
still remember to this day, I messaged you on Slack. I was like, Avi, I'm falling apart here. I'm about to
yeah,
leave. And you get so much anxiety. So there's all kinds of fear of what'll happen because it's really a lot of unknowns. But a year later, I think this is everybody goes on this journey and they address
hmm
all these fears. And I think once you look back, you're like, wow, you know, I, this is like a different me from like 2 years ago, because 2 years ago, I wouldn't have spoken on YouTube. I wouldn't have come on a live show, you know. I hate public speaking. Like, what am I doing? And
yeah,
now I'm, you like it's a new me. I just want to help people. I'm here today. Like,
yeah.
can I make a difference in one of the viewers on the show? Can I make a difference in their lives and help them, start their own journey, discover a new identity, create a life of freedom where they own their own time? And when you look back a year from now and you've realized you've gone on this journey and conquered all those fears, it's so rewarding, right? And that's how it is for me.
Oh
It's
God,
like you,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
it's
awesome, man.
it's a different way of looking at things.
Yeah,
It's
and I think you were I kind of hear it for you, but guys, I'm gonna echo it just so you get it too, which is that again what we were talking about earlier a little bit was that we're not two different people. It's not like personal, professional, right? We're the same person. So what you're gonna find is that if you kind of transform your life in one aspect, your whole life is transformed. And frankly, I mean, work. I love the work that I do, and I always say that, yeah, I mean, that thing that, the people talk about, like, when you jump out of your bed excited about your work. And I didn't think that was quite possible for an extended period of time. Of course, I
yeah,
had phases in my 15 plus years. There were times when I would get excited, but mostly it was like, oh, God, right? And, Monday blues and thank God it's Friday. It's like, why? I'm as excited on Friday as a Monday or a Saturday, right? It doesn't matter. But, but yeah, so it's kind of been phenomenal, and I feel really blessed. But uh, I think that initially the fear is there. Oh God, there's so much in here. So there's fear of
yeah,
failing, and then there's kind of working so hard. So of course, fear of failing. One of course, and we've talked about this here as well, is you can mitigate that by starting this as a side gig, which of course I recommend to everybody. I left my job cold turkey. I would not recommend it. Now again, it has its advantages because man, I
Mm.
had my back to the wall, and in one way, it was so gut wrenching, right? I mean, it was so hard that it really pushed me on the inner journey that I talk about, right? This and that is instrumental. Most of my outer breakthroughs were my revenue taking off or my YouTube channel taking off. People see the outside results, but I know that each one was preceded by some inner breakthrough. Something just clicked and I got it and like boom, right? So and then it showed up outside. So maybe it was helpful in some ways, but again, I would not recommend it to anybody. So I think if you have a fear of failing, you can just try it out. And frankly, I talk about the same thing with Power BI. I mean, I say Power BI is agile BI, and you can use the same approach. Just try it out, right, and just see how it goes. So that's kind of one thing. But so it's kind of odd to hear from you that so you did kind of transition out of your job somewhat gradually. I mean, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
fear was still real. I mean, you still felt it at the time when you were leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was, yeah, overwhelming is,
Yeah.
is how I put it.
Boy. So, folks, I think we all are going to have to face it, right? And
Yeah.
I guess the only other tip we can share is that have a supportive community around you. And of course, that's what we have built in our program for consultants. It's a small group program. You get to know each other. And yeah, when you need that support, they're there for you because we're in the same boat. Uh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I want to add to that. Like, I started, our minds are amazing and I think because of how we've evolved over thousands of years, we focus on fear, I think, and I've realized that because what I started doing was
Oh,
journaling.
yeah.
And every day I would write down on the left side the supporters of this business and going on this journey. And
Yeah.
then on the left side, I would put, how many people were really detractors or kind of,
Yeah.
pulling me down. And what was amazing was when I went through this exercise, I was like, well, I have a whole list of like 20 supporters.
Yeah.
And then I went on to the detractor, the people that were like consuming me and and they were like a list of three or four. And I'm like, this is amazing. So I, I highly recommend that is, really find that support network and understand that it's going to be bigger and your mind is going to tend to shift towards the negative. I think
Yeah.
it's just how we're built. We just get consumed by fear. And that's what I felt,
That's
leaving
true.
too. Yeah. Even though I had so many supporters and people saying, go start your own journey, start your own adventure, build your own identity, my mind was consumed with the fear and
Yeah.
just the
Yeah,
few people.
I think we're hardwired that way, right? Because for a
Yeah.
long time in our existence, it was a fight for survival.
Yeah.
And our
Yeah.
world has changed so fast. But guys, our genetics, our biology, our physiology just hasn't kept up. These are the old routines. So think about yourself as like a phone, right? I mean, with an OS running, and we have kind of an imagine if you never updated your phone, right? I mean, it'll start to show. We kind of the firmware update shows up and we update it, but the same way, so the core OS is there, but you can still make some upgrades. But you're gonna have to really focus there.
Yeah.
Uh, and talking about focus, so that's when Charles said that as well, and that caught my attention. I'm just gonna speak a little bit about that. So one thing that I learned from my coach and experimented with it, applied it, tested it, and I believed it is absolutely true, which is he would say that whatever you focus on grows. Now, and that's where it gets tricky because imagine that you want to earn a lot of money as a consultant and you think you're focused on that. You say, right? But it's not really kind of what you're thinking is also what you're feeling. So if you really look at what's running in your head, I know what was running in my head. In my head, so again, I mean, if somebody would ask me, Avi, what do you want? It's like, oh, I want to be a super successful consultant. I want to become really rich, earn a lot of money. But what was running in my head? And my head was running, oh, am I good enough? Oh, can I succeed? Will I find a client? I will not find a client. Oh my God, this is so bad. This is such a bad idea. I'm only good enough to dig ditches. I should go join those road workers and dig ditches. That's what I'm good for. Right? I mean, imagine the negativity. I mean, think about the iceberg, right? I mean, on the top, you have this external thing you're saying that, oh, yeah, I want to be a rich consultant. But on the bottom, you have this thing dragging you down. Where is your focus? Where is truly your focus? It's on all those fears and all that stuff, right? So guess what's going to grow? That's what's going to grow. Guys, and you know, so, and this applies in other stuff as well. People are looking for jobs. You get stuck in that, oh, will I get this job? Will I not get this job? I'm not good enough. Well, guess what your focus is? That is always going to grow. So if you really want that, you got to switch your focus. And you know, all right. So I won't go too deep into that. Let's see to tackle something else. Let's look at some of the comments going on. Robert is here. Robert, good to have you on this, mate. Um, let's see. So Joe had some comments about his journey, and Said is saying, "Oh, I wouldn't be recognized for my end product." Man,
Hmm.
that's a challenge too. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna park that one as well. So one we had like, how do I know how much am I worth? And you know, what if I don't get recognized?
Some good feedback today. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. And I want to talk about something specific. Gosh, medical coverage. And I think it's a U.S. problem. I mean, Canada is sort of saying, you know, so universal coverage. Europe thinks it better. I wouldn't know about the rest of the world, but uh, yeah, how was your journey with that?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. And I think that's part of a more global, like financial security for your family. I think, for me,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
uh,
I like that. You know, kind of the um,
because the kids, college, tuition, the health of the family, that was health insurance. And the way I attacked it was we sat down. It was, I think there's something called fear setting that Tim Ferriss do, but my wife and I wrote down all the different things we were worried about. And then I was like, well, I'm going to attack each one, and analyze each one. So
mhm.
and I know we've talked about this, but there's different ways there's Cobra, I think you had mentioned.
Yeah,
But I just reached out. I was like, well, I'm going to call a healthcare provider and I'm going to get a quote. I'm just see how much this costs. So I got a quote. I was like, oh, you can get a quote for this, because I think part of the mentality is we've always depended on a corporation or somebody else to provide that.
yeah,
And then my mindset was like, I think I can only get it through that. I've never gone through the exercise of getting this myself. But then I called and got a quote, and it wasn't that bad because, and I think you put this in your video, it's like relative to what you could make with Power BI relative to that cost, or in a consulting gig, it was much more, right? The ceiling is much higher. So I was
yeah,
like, well, this cost, once you put it relative to what you could make in a few years, it's like, that's not bad at all. So, with a couple of phone calls, that fear came crumbling down, once
yeah,
I number to it and I understood, and it took a little bit of research, but I think you've told people, or if you have a spouse that's still working, they can get insurance for you now, or if you have
yeah,
Cobra, you can get that. So
yeah.
there's different, that
Yeah.
was how I attacked it, but
Man, you know, I'm so glad we have like two of us to go back and forth because inevitably you say something and it triggers something in me. So, you know, I brought a medical coverage, but Charles said financial security. And now I'm thinking back. So, guys, again, I mean, we've talked about fear. So, again, there are these logical things, but in some way you have to realize that fear is a very emotional thing. And a lot of times you may not be able to logic your way out of it, right? So because it needs something else, right? So it needs a mindset shift essentially. So hopefully some of this logical argument will help you, but you're going to have to go a level deeper as well. So on that, what I wanted to mention was that when all of this was going, I talked about my struggles, right? My checks bouncing and so forth, right? And it was hard. It was hard, right? But the loop that was playing in my head was that my kids will go hungry.
mm,
And and I just couldn't get it out of my head. In fact, still remember that I would have these visions of my kids, kind of you see the malnourished kids, I would see that version of them. And man, I mean, right now I'm trying to frankly try not to cry because that vision, of course, I mean, you love your kids, right? I mean, that's so powerful. That's what fear can do, right? It can be crippling, right? So again, if you stay there, if you stay focused on that, then it just grows. Now, of course, even now, I mean, even then, maybe I kind of realized that it's not rational. It's not rational. I mean, come on. I had been in corporate America for 15 plus years. Under no scenario would my kids go hungry. I mean, for one, they're like food banks and stuff, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, it was not a real possibility, but it was a real fear for me, right? So again, there's a logical stuff, and we can talk endlessly about this, but you're still gonna fail if you get stuck in that emotional state.
Yeah.
That is going to need something else. You can't talk your way out of that. But yeah, just to recap Charles' points. For one, yeah, my number one recommendation is Cobra. So when you leave your job, again, you get fired, you quit, doesn't matter, right? I mean, you in US, you can extend your coverage for 1 year through Cobra. Now, when you're going to see the price quote for that, it's going to look like, whoa, what? How much? But trust me, that's the best option because if you are leaving your job, then there's a lot going on. There's a lot changing. That way, I have the same coverage. You don't have to worry about, oh, my coverage
Yeah.
changed. Are my doctors in the network and your family is complaining about it? Like your wife is asking, like, oh, I can't see my doctor anymore. Your fault. Right? So you don't want to deal with all of that. Trust me. Cobra is your best bet. It lets you continue your medical coverage for 1 year. Right? So that's one point. Another point, as Charles said, that this life is different. And again, what I say is don't just leave your 9 to 5 behind, leave the 9 to 5 mindset behind. I'll tell you guys, all my life, I have a spreadsheet and where I kept track of my like promotions and bonus and all that stuff. Man, all I've gotten in my life, by the way, I mean, I just got promoted once in my life. That's another story. But if I look at like the pay raises I got, they were always single digits. And they were very low single digits, man. I mean, we're talking 2%, 3%, 0%. You right? I mean, in a tough year, it was, and that's what it was. That was every single year. I would walk in and we have this discussion, and performance reviews weren't my favorite thing. I'm glad to have left that behind, right? So, any single digit raises, but in a business, really in any business, it's not unheard of for any company to double their revenue. In fact, I would say it's quite feasible. It's quite feasible to not just do that in a single year, but go on a run for multiple years. And at some point, you got to kind of balance out and stuff. And at some point, you hit these ceilings where you're at this level, and then go to the next level, you need a shift. And again, kind of an inner shift or something in your process market or something like that. But yeah, right, we all know, like if you dig through, you probably even know people who have run businesses, and certainly in our consulting group, I mean, we see that all the time. So there's that saying that penny wise, pound foolish, right? So I think staying focused on medical insurance is exactly that. You're trying to save pennies, but you're losing pounds, right? So cool, awesome. So let's
Oh, I want to add
yeah.
one.
Mm-hmm.
The college, your tuition. I think that one, a lot of people came to me. It's like, you have 3 kids. Like, what are you
Oh
going to
God,
do
yeah.
about them, about college, about, and I remember leading up into it, I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't have any clients yet. So I'm going to leave next week and I'm going to sit around. And I remember sitting around, I was like, man, I'm not doing anything, and I'm not doing anything to help pay for their tuition and college fees and stuff. And,
Yeah.
this was before the first few clients were coming in, but I had to change my mind shift because my mindset. Right. And the thing I did was, I could work with them. One of the things was what I wanted to do was spend more time with the kids. And I was
Yeah.
like, now I have time to spend with the kids. And while there's this lull before my first clients come in, I'm going to spend time on their education and, see if there's something I can help with math, science, English. And that way I can invest in their education. So maybe they get some
Yeah.
scholarship or something. So I was like, okay, now I can use this time to help them to make money, in the future that way. And
Yeah.
it totally shifted everything. And then it made it all worth it because I was like, this is why I'm doing this. I get to spend
Yeah.
more time with the kids and
Oh,
potentially help
absolutely.
them in their future. Yeah.
Oh God, there's so much there. So folks, yeah, I mean, for one, I talk about the deferred life plan, right? I mean, people are often um, living their life as an if-then statement, like if this happens, then I'm gonna do this, right? If I earn enough money, once I earn enough money, then I'm gonna spend more time with family, right? And right now, is I should be like dedicated to my work. If this happens, so let's stop doing that, right? I mean, if your family is important, kids are important, do that now, right? Because frankly,
Yeah.
there's no other time that you have. And of course, I'll share kind of a quick story. When I was thinking about leaving my job at Microsoft, this was a big roadblock for me. In fact, I had decided, I debated over it, kind of this logical things. Like, oh, I clearly can't leave my job because of my kids. Because of my kids, I owe it to them to give them a secure future, right? But then, man, I watched this TED Talk, and really, TED Talks have like shaped my life. And I think this is some professor in Canada, and it's got a very controversial topic, like 10 reasons why you're gonna fail or something. And the guy's a really interesting speaker. He gets hyped up, and he's really talking, and spitting from his mouth and all this stuff. But it's a powerful talk. And in one of them, so again, it was like 10 reasons why you're gonna fail, and one of them was that you're gonna make your kids your excuse. And I'm like, oh shit, he's talking about me. And then he said, well, but if you do that, how are you ever going to look your kids in the eye when they fall down or something and they're ready to quit and tell them to keep pursuing their dreams? And I was like, holy
Yeah.
shit, right? And my whole reason flipped. Earlier, I was like, oh, I can't leave my job because of my kids. And now I was like, man, I have to leave my job and pursue my dream because of my kids.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, kids, man, they don't listen to you. They never listen to you. You can tell them, like, oh, it's really hard to pursue your dreams. No. But man, they see you. They see what you're doing, and that's the biggest example. And Charles, you're not, right? I mean, you're teaching them life, how to live. That's the most
Yeah.
important lesson. And that I hope they do learn and carry on
Yeah.
for their lives. Awesome. So, I'm looking at the clock, and let's try to bring it home. Let's see so in our core topics, I think we covered quite a bit. So let's do some of the Q&A, and a lot of good comments came in. I'm gonna go backwards, and then folks, if I missed something, just type in it again. So Kirk is talking about what percentage of annual income would you leave? So we were talking about build it on the side. Did you have a number in mind, Charles, or how did it? Right. So
Um,
you're building it on the side, and well,
yeah.
yeah, you're earning this much in your current income. When is the right time to leave? Because of course,
You
if you
know,
leave too late, then you're slowing down that growth, and we talk about for not right. And if you leave too early, yeah. So did you have a number in your mind? How did it work out
I
for you?
didn't really have a number, I think. I think it was just based on when I saw that it
Yeah.
was capable inside the business. And
Mm-hmm.
so here's what I did. I because I was like, man, it's going to be hard while I'm in a business to find outside business because you don't have time to do the marketing and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's really difficult. And this is what I want to tell the audience too, is I struggle right now. Sometimes I still do a year later,
Yeah.
spend time on the marketing and
Oh, yeah.
sales
Yeah.
side, and then you networking, and then you got to spend time on the inside doing the BI, the
Yeah.
consulting side. And it's a juggling act. And there's days when you're going to be like, and you get afraid. You're like, if I spend all my time doing this, am I going to disappoint the clients that need the BI stuff? And then you work too much on that side of things. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have any future leads coming in. So you got to jump back to the other side, right? So it's really difficult when you're working inside a company
Mm-hmm.
is the ability to build out that outside
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
on your extra time because you come home and you're just dead tired and you're like,
Yeah.
when
Well,
am I ever going to build this up?
I'll say that
Yeah,
folks definitely use that as a sign, right? I
yeah,
mean, as a good sign. Like, so if you find yourself that, oh my God, right? I mean, consulting, I'm not finding enough time. Well, I would say that pat yourself on the back for it. That means things have picked up, right? I mean, you obviously have one or a few clients, so that's
yeah,
great, right? I mean, and again, so, right, sometimes we kind of forget our journey, but look back to the time when you did not have any clients or just had just and this was just a thought in your head, from there to that point where you have a few clients and right, I mean, as I say, it's a good problem to have, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so, and you're saying, oh God, I'm not finding, how do I find time? That's a good sign. So definitely listen to that. I'll say there's no set number. It's kind of like
Yeah.
investing in stocks, and they talk about diversification, like stocks, bonds, and all that stuff, and they say, well, it really is on your risk tolerance, right? So, but with greater risk can come greater reward. So yeah, there's no right answer there. So of course, once you I do say start it on the side just so you can test it out, just get a feel of it. Don't leave cold turkey like me without a plan and then struggle for a year and a half, run out of funds and all that stuff. That's crazy, right? So don't do that. But if you if you if you go too early, of course, like I went from kind of cold turkey. That's really hard. But if you go too late, you're limiting your success, right? I mean, you could possibly grow faster here,
Yeah.
but again, it's on your risk tolerance. So I have heard different numbers from different people. Like I remember these conversations. Like one person was, Avi, I'm gonna leave when it is at 100%. It matches my salary. And I know people who have waited till that point, but I also know that it took them longer in the journey. I know people who for whom I personally feel like 50% with a line of sight of growth is a good point. So if you're at 50%, hopefully, you're not worried about paying your bills anymore, right? I mean, you're like, yep, yeah, I mean, my checks are not going to bounce, right? That's just still scary for me, right? So checks are not going to bounce. And then you have a line of sight. Like you've seen that, man, I grew this from 0 to 50% in 6 months, part time. Heck, what can I do in like if I go in full time? So, but again, it's gonna kind of depend up to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Just want to add. So,
yeah, we have
I
a
think for
few more
me,
questions though.
yeah, yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, just real quick then for
Yeah.
me, it wasn't really a number, but it was my like you said, risk tolerance and how much confidence I had in this working. And I went inside the business, right? And I think what you taught me too was there's switches. You learn how people go through the buying process, especially for consulting. And once I learned that, and then
Yeah.
I did a couple outside, and I was like, okay, I'm comfortable understanding the buyer's journey and the mindset, and I can close. Once I was comfortable with that, I was like, okay, it's not really a number. I'm confident that I can go and sell and get business now.
Oh
So
God,
that's when
yeah.
I decided to make the
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah, and of course, in our program, we have this 5-step journey, and steps 3 and 4 are: 3 is get your first paid client, 4 is get your second paid client. And I know
Yeah.
that at that point, it's a huge milestone, right?
Yeah.
And again, we talk about internal shifts. The funny thing is, the key thing about this milestone is not what happened externally that you got these paying clients, but what happens internally. Because this is when I see people going through this internal shift where they say two things to themselves, right? They say, "Oh, look, I can help people and I can get paid for this." Hey, look, mate, it looks like, man, we're right at the top of the hour. Charles, I
Okay.
want to make sure. Can you just hang on for a little bit?
I
Wrap up
can
the Q and
answer a
A.
couple more. Yep.
Okay, great. So I think BL had a good question, which is how to network with clients while you have a job. But we're gonna hold that one. Go back to Logan, and maybe we'll come back to BL and this. So Logan is saying, what's a great way to network with clients? So Logan is active on Upwork, but wants to find others. So I know I have a favorite platform in mind. What do you think, Charles? What's a good way to network?
Oh, is he talking about in town networking or out
I
uh,
guess let's go virtual. I mean, I don't know, in
virtual?
town,
Okay,
COVID 19, yeah.
so yeah, you kind of put me on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
then John Nemo, and then Nathan Bibby. So LinkedIn, I believe, because there's several things, and one of the key things is it's permission based. So when you send out a connection request, and be personal, be real, be a
Don't be
person.
salesy. Yeah, we've talked about
Yeah,
that, guys. The best way to sell
yeah,
is not to sell. Be a real human being.
yeah.
Really go with the intention of helping others and so forth. And cool. So carry on.
Yeah,
Yeah, good.
so it's different from followers in this one. They you actually ask for permission. They connect. It's where all the business. I read some statistic like 95% of all professionals are on LinkedIn. So it's where the consulting, the business people are.
Yeah.
And I've heard too that your post, if you add value on LinkedIn, it'll stay. I forget what they call it. We talked about it, decay rate or something. It'll stay on for weeks, right?
Yeah.
So kind of what I talked about earlier, when you post,
Yeah.
you have an audience that can engage with that post for over a week, whereas some of the other ones you post and like
Yeah.
seconds later, it's off all their feeds. There's just too much. But LinkedIn,
Yeah.
there's still time, there's still a decay rate where it has an impact and it adds
Yeah.
value to people's lives.
Yeah, man. I mean, we could do a whole episode on LinkedIn. Of course, actually,
Yeah.
so guys, we're planning like an internal class for our consultant group. Charles is going to be leading that. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good one.
So yeah, but LinkedIn is our favorite platform, and it works great. Cool. So let's talk about PL's question, which is, man, I have a job. I don't want to get fired. How do I do this thing? Um,
Oh,
yeah, what do you
like
think
an
about that?
outside job, you have your corporate
So
job.
I have my full time job working at Microsoft. I want to become a consultant, but dude, I mean, yeah, what if I change my LinkedIn profile and looking for gigs or something, and then my boss finds out or something else? How do you deal with that?
Oh, that was very difficult for me. I had to make sure, and I think I got this from Grace, one of the students in our program too, is just make sure that the time at work, the 8 hours, is focused on that, and then
Yeah,
anything else is outside of the work, and make sure I made sure I had all the resources, everything. Um, we've been back and forth on this one, Avi, too.
yeah.
I don't. It's a tough one because.
Yeah, so everybody might not agree with me there,
Yep.
but I'm all about flying under the radar
Mhm.
because, frankly, for me, I was used to it even inside Microsoft. So, folks who know my story know that I ran into a lot of trouble, right? Almost got fired kind of trouble for pushing Power BI within Microsoft. I know it sounds
Yeah.
bizarre, it's their tool, but hey, times were a little different, right? I mean, Satya wasn't around back then. Satya fell in love with Power BI and now wants everybody to use it. Great. But I was going up against these entrenched BI team that were yeah, so and they told me to shut my work down. They said, Avi, you can't do it. And of course, and of course I was like, man, I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, I felt so frustrated I wanted to quit, but didn't really want to quit. I'm like, shit, do I really want to lose my job over this? But they told me to shut down, so I flew under the radar. I just went and talked to the sales team kind of on the side, and I did that for a long time, like long enough. We're talking about many months, like 6 to 9 months, and slowly built that up. So yeah, kind of this ninja operation. And if you think about it this way, a company could have been thinking about laying you off for some time, months. You know how this decision was like, oh, guys, in the Q2 of next year, we have to lay off 10,000 people and start making lists. They've been working on it for months. Do they tell you? No, they don't. No, they just drop it on your head. You get this, invited to this conference call or a meeting, and you sit down with the manager, and they give you the news,
Yeah.
right? So that's how it's done. That's how it's done, guys. I mean, that's corporate America. That's what I saw day in and day out. Why can't we be the same way? I mean, it's fair, right? So the first time you have this thought that, oh, I want to be a consultant, should you run to your manager and tell them everything about it? No. Just the same way they don't when they're planning to lay you off. You're gonna tell them when you're ready, right? So so what I would say is that, I mean, yeah, you have to be, so don't change your LinkedIn profile as such. LinkedIn, by the way, the money is in the inbox anyway. The money is in direct connections with people.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you have to like change all of your profile. I mean, make your profile as a Power BI professional, but then you can kind of connect with people one on one and have one on one private conversations. So cool. Let's call that one good. Of course, we could go deeper there.
Yeah. No, I think
Let's
I think your
Yeah,
point of LinkedIn is direct messages. That is so true.
yeah,
Don't get caught up in the likes, the dislikes, the comments, because that's not
yeah,
where the business. That's not where you're going to get the leads.
Ye-
it comes in. It's very strange, and I've seen it.
yeah.
Like exactly like you said, it's a direct message. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm ready to work with you now, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we call them in our entrepreneur industry, we call them vanity metrics because the
yeah,
people get so fixated about that, like the followers, subscribers, this that. None of that matters. I mean, I
yeah,
know people who on YouTube channel they have like 10,000 subscribers. Man, they're earning many times more than me, right? I mean, yeah,
yeah.
because it just works differently. Cool. Let's wrap it up with the last one that we have, which we'll kind of bunch it together. Hopefully, it works. Which is how much am I worth? And oh god, maybe there's two separate questions. Let me take one of them really quick. What if I don't get recognized for my work? Um, so, folks, in a way, I rarely get recognized for my work. I think that's life of a consultant. Like when I do some work, I would do it for my client, and it's usually them who presents it to the upper management and so forth. Sometimes I'm there, but then I exit pretty quickly, and it becomes their baby. And frankly, I'm okay with that. I want them to succeed. I want to see them succeed. My goal is to empower them, make them superstars. Now, of course, I do my own thing, and of course, you've heard me talk about it. Do good work, tell great stories. So, man, it doesn't matter if I worked at NASA or I worked at nuclear power stations, which I've done both. I've come out and told that story. Now, of course, you gotta, I mean, when it's sensitive and they're not open, I mean, I change everything. I change the name, I change the industry, I change the data set, but then I come out and tell the story. That's how I get recognized for my work, and that's how I get my future clients. So,
Yeah.
so Charles, what would you say to the other question? I didn't write down who asked this, but how do I know how much am I worth? And somebody had like a salary figure like 60,000. Is that good enough? Like somebody's asking my hourly rate. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And to me, I had to shift my mindset about money. And I do stuff for free and just to help. So I've shifted it to I'm here to help people out, especially at the bottom of the pyramid. And some people don't have as much money, but they could come back later in future years and help you out.
Wow.
But with trust and attention, people pay me that way now too.
Ooh.
So that's I've shifted my mind. I was like, if people can pay and they get value out of this, they can pay me in money. But there's other people that pay me in trust and attention, and I value that. I've shifted my mindset to say I value this because I'm making an impact in somebody's life, and I want
Yeah.
to, change their lives for the better.
Yeah.
And if they can't pay me in money, maybe they can pay me in other things like trust and attention. So,
Ooh, man, that's pretty deep. So, of course,
yeah,
folks, I've heard so many stories from Charles. One of his stories I'm gonna quickly share was that I think he was at a restaurant and he sat down with the owners for hours, helping them with their online system. Right? I mean, that's
yeah,
bizarre. Right? I mean, you go to a restaurant, you eat your food, maybe leave them a tip, right? And if you're a jerk, you don't leave a tip, right? But this guy kind of sits down for hours and helps them, contact customer support. So Charles is pretty phenomenal. I'll say that I'm a little bit so really quick. I mean, sometimes I struggle with this. So of course, right now, just we're just wrapping up. We ran this Learn Power BI scholarship, but man, even as I was running it, I was struggling with it. I was struggling with it in the fact that I mean, I obviously want to help people, and I know there are people out there who don't have the financial resources. But I also hear stories of people who took loans, who kind of broke their piggy banks to join my course. And sometimes when they pay you in money, I think they can pay you in other currency, but money, man, it's such a real thing in our universe, in our world, that it also makes them more committed, which makes them get better results. So right, that's kind of weird. But we took kind of a tangent here. Let's come back to how much are you worth. So my take on that is that so of course salary. So guys, one approach is time for money, and it's okay if you're there. And hey, you can be rewarded pretty well with Power BI. I generally say that if you know what you're doing in Power BI, I'm not saying you're an expert, but if you know what you're doing, which doesn't take that much, generally what I'm seeing right now is your rates would be north of $100 an hour. Now that's pretty good income. And now, of course, the top limit I've seen is $400 an hour, right? So you can be anywhere in this range, and generally people grow in the hourly rate. But of course, you do not want to be stuck in this time money capsule. You want to break out of that. And frankly, that's what our consultant group has been working with. And I'll call out one of our members, Eamon Kelly, right? I mean, Eamon is an inspiration for all because he has been doing it for a while where he sells them not his time, but solutions. So you can walk into a company and say, hey, here's a solution. Look, I helped this other car rental agency with their stuff, and you're using the same system, right? The same ERP, SAS, whatever, right? Um, and here's a solution I'll give you. Here's the results you're gonna get, and this is $10,000. And that can take you, if you already have the model built and yeah, just to change some connections, they're using the same system, maybe it'll take you a few hours, right? So, but again, it disconnects time and money. So guys, how much are you worth? Well, so you can think in terms of time and money, hourly rate, salary, and so forth. But if you are committed to this path, then I would certainly encourage you to break that connection, time and money. And this is just one of the ways you can do it. Whew, man, this was a tour de force. God,
Yeah.
and just like last time, I feel like I want to go watch this again because there was
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
in there. Cool.
And this
Any
is
last
gonna,
thoughts to bring us home, Charles?
yeah. One of the things is there's so many fears. So many people don't take action to address those fears.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to make a commitment. So I saw one of the posts. It's aim lek and written in Thai, ฟัง
Huh.
ไม่รู้เรื่อง ครับ, which is translates to I don't understand what's being talked on the show. So my dream is to do this in Thai. And one of my fears is
Yeah.
I haven't practiced Thai in so long and read it and stuff. But this motivates me to attack this problem. And so I'm going to making a commitment to do a show in Thai, and I'm going to invite, if anybody wants to come on the show and speak Thai. So,
Wow.
attack your fears, make a commitment. A lot of times it's not that bad. It's in our head, right? So that's my best point
Yeah.
is write it all down, all your fears, and take action to attack those fears and
Oh
move
man,
forward.
love
Yeah.
it. Maybe we will do something as a group. Of course, I'm thinking about the TED Talk that we have talked about. The guy who commits to failing 100 times, and
Yeah,
then he
yeah, yeah.
does weird things. Like he would knock at people's doors and say, "Hey, can I plant Can I plant this flower in your backyard or something?" Oh God. So yeah, that's awesome. So, folks, yeah, that's a good note to end things on. And again, fear, as Charles said, it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's real because it feels very real, but we definitely should question that. And you know how when we were kids and then we thought that there was this monster in the closet and it looked like a monster, and then we turned on the light and it was gone? Man, but it needs that action. You gotta get up, overcome your fears, and turn on the light, and you're gonna see that, oh, where did the fear go? Right? And of course, Charles and I mean, we look back and like, oh yeah, I used to be really scared of that thing. I mean, doing
Yeah.
live shows, and here we are. you know, so so yeah, it's awesome. Action, overcome your fears. All right, folks, we will catch you next time. Until then, power on.